All right, folks, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Tuesday Night Live on the 10 Horse Money YouTube channel. Before we get into the stream, I want to thank all the veterans that have sacrificed for us and have made this the best country available, in my opinion. We wouldn't be where we are without the sacrifices of those men and women in the armed forces. And, we think about them a lot, but this is one of those days where we honor them. And also, as we go on live stream a little bit further, we are going to be doing a couple giveaways. We always do a $25 Baitworks gift card giveaway, and got a hold of Taylor from Omega Custom, and he said, let's do a little Omega giveaway, since that's what Roger caught his fish on. So we're going to be doing two giveaways tonight. Also, Cumberland Pro Lures and Sunline are sponsoring the stream. So thanks for being a part of this. And Roger, man, welcome to the stream. I know you've been super busy, and like we were talking backstage, I had no idea. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised, but I had no idea how many phone calls you've been getting and how many opportunities you had to be on live streams. So how has all that attention been for you?
It's I guess a good problem to have. It's just been truly blessed, and to have these people reaching out and saying that they want to talk to me about fishing, and it's just crazy. It's been good. It's been a whirlwind. Still fairly numb over the whole thing, and I don't think really has set in yet. But it's been a just unbelievable week from the tournament till now, and just the amount of people just still getting text, even individual text, daily, and just got one about an hour ago, just reaching out saying how happy they were, and gosh, it's so humbling. It's crazy.
Are they going to have some sort of parade for you in town?
Nothing like that, I don't think. We are going to, in fact, there's a Lake Ozarks Christmas parade. I'm going to try to get my boat and my sponsor, Blackbeard Marine. We're going to go through that and hand out some bobbers to the kids and stuff like that down at Lake of the Ozarks this year. So I'm going to try to promote my sponsors and stuff like that and hand some stuff out for the kids. So it should be good there.
I think you need to get one of those, like a bridge or something on Highway 5.
Come on now.
Well, so we were also talking about how things change on a lake. I fish a lot of small lakes around here, and I don't get on them that often, but they change even in a couple week period. And I know you said you'd fish the regional down there on Grand. When you showed up for, first of all, kind of what did you found down there during that regional? And then when you showed up for the Toyota Series practice, was it the same, or had some things changed?
Quite a bit had changed. I've spent a week down there for my regional and really had it dialed in pretty good. It was nothing but a 7/8 ounce Omega Pro Mega jig in docks, and I knew the specific docks they were on. Was scoping a little bit on those. I could see them laying in there because they were a little deeper docks, and several docks in particular had some really, really big ones on them, and I just did not execute, did not land them. First day, had an opportunity for probably well over 20 pounds and just didn't happen. Had a fish that was in the 7-pound range laying on his side at the net. I mean, just right there, just did not get him in the net, and then lost a couple other really key fish. And I think after the first day, I was 14th place or something like that. I think I had 14 pounds. And then ended up in the tournament. Second day, I had the same stuff. I broke some fish off. They were really tied up in the wells, just couldn't get them out in those hydro hoists and stuff, and they broke me off. But had a great opportunity, was really looking forward to doing the same thing in a Toyota because it was only a week and a half away. So my wife and I, Deb, when we went down there for 2 days prior to the cutoff for the Toyota Series, and there was a week off limits basically. And I fished totally new water during that week, and noticed that the water had changed color. Was the first thing I noticed where I was fishing the regional. It had gotten dirtier, stained a lot more. And I didn't know if that was turnover, if that was because of a rain that they had had down there, which I don't think that's what it was. But it was substantially more stained in the area I had fished in the regional, which was around Honey Creek area, Shangri-La, that whole stretch right in there, the airport area. That's kind of what I was keying on in the regional. And so I fished from Horse Creek to the dam the 2 days I was down there. First day was very average, wasn't great. But the second day, I kind of found a deal on some really deep docks down by the dam, some pretty good fish. I caught a couple of 4s and 5s and saw more fish in those docks, and felt pretty good about it. So moved forward to the first day of official practice of the Toyota, which would have been Saturday. Just so happened to be the same day of the Anglers in Action Championship where it started. It's probably 200 boats there for those guys. So the lake is just packed with boats. All the Toyota guys, all the Anglers in Action guys there Saturday and Sunday. So long story short, my practice during the Monday, Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I guess it would have been Saturday, Sunday, Monday, wasn't great. I mean, could catch a limit, but the size wasn't that good either. Didn't see a lot of fish in those docks. And then Wednesday was an off day. Tuesday, I stayed, I put in at Wolf Creek and fished around there a little bit. And then I went up the Elk River, and the wind blew really hard. And I put a big Omega spinnerbait on, 1 ounce spinnerbait, and caught a big one up there in the Elk River behind a dock, a really shallow dock, just in the shade. And Greg Bearhorse was my brother-in-law. He qualified also and was fishing with me as a co-angler. And he caught one almost 4 pounds behind me on a chatterbait. Shallow, real shallow. And I thought, those are better fish than I've seen. So getting late in the day, and I'm run back and fish. It's 4 o'clock. We're about due off the water for the last day of practice. And I pull into a spot and I catch a 5-pounder, very shallow on a spinnerbait, but it was on big rock. And I thought, man, that's kind of a fluke there, maybe. And went a little further and I caught another big one. And same way, shallow. And I thought, if I really start catching them in practice, I carry these little rubber deals that it's basically electrical wire that I pull the copper out of it. I cut some pieces of plastic, put that over my hook, try not to catch them either on a jig or spinnerbait. Mm-hmm. So I put one of those on my spinnerbait and had 2 more grab it in the next 15 minutes, and both of them felt big. The last one would not drop it. In fact, I thought I had him hooked. He was underneath the boat just dogging. Finally dropped it. And I'm like, okay. The jig deal would be the safe bet. That would be the safe bet, because I knew that this was late in the day and it was probably after tournament hours. And I thought it was probably a pretty good chance it was kind of fluky because the low light. But I thought, what? It's a championship. And you're not fishing for points. You're not fishing to advance other than, the Redcrest. Go fish for them good ones. So I said, I'm going to start there at the very least. So I pulled into a spot fairly close and caught a small keeper pretty early and went a little further and caught a 5-pounder on a sunken boat out there in about, I don't know, it was probably about 6 feet of water. And had a great start. And I fished around there for a while and really didn't get much. And I said, okay, that one set of docks wasn't very far. I actually had a row of docks that I had waypoint behind each dock. They were deeper docks, but I thought I've got that and this one big fish dock close to Honey Creek. So I ran there thinking I'd fill my limit out and then come back and finish the day throwing a spinnerbait to try to catch a big one. So I ran there and spent an hour and a half to 2 hours and never caught one. And I said, okay, I've got two now. And I said, if you're going to get beat with that spinnerbait, because those are the better fish. So I ran back to that area again and ended up catching, a couple more quality fish. I ended up with almost 15 pounds the first day. Caught them all on a spinnerbait. I was in 14th place, I think, after day one, if I remember right. 18 something was leading it, and felt real good about where I was sitting. Second day started, and started in the same area again, and it was slow. I caught one little keeper, and up till, there was just glass, it was high pressure, zero wind, and I fished around, nothing. So I ran to those fish in Elk River, and they weren't having it either. It was just glass there, and they were so shallow that it didn't surprise me I didn't catch any there. They were on gravel without any breeze at all, and I was probably wasting my time there. So I'm coming back out of the Elk, and I got to the Elk River Bridge. Chase had practiced with me. He made the co-angler side also, and he had caught one on a jig on the bridge pier in practice, a pretty good fish. And I saw more of them there on my live scope. So I stopped there, tried that, nothing. And notice about that time, the only little breeze that we had was kind of coming in on that riprap right there. And I thought, well, let me run that. So I picked that big spinnerbait back up and went through there, and I caught two. And I'm like, okay. So, and one of them was a
two keepers, or
two good ones. I had one of them almost 3 pounds.
Okay.
And Chase had a bite that same day behind a dock coming out of the Elk a little further. One bite on this row of 15 docks. And it was very specific where he was at behind the dock on a cable. And I ran to that dock alone. And I don't know if it's the same fish, but I caught one there in the same spot. So then I had 4, not much weight. And then I thought, okay, I'm going back, because the wind was blowing. It's getting the right time of day, and pulled in a couple key stretches there again. I caught a 5-pounder and another 4, I think. And my co-angler caught a 4 and a 3 in the last hour. It was so much timing. Late in the day, they moved up. So I weighed 15 something. The second day was in second place, going into third day. And third day was difficult again. Very fortunate. I started in the same spot and caught one that weighed 214 about the 5th dock I fished. There was a brush pile out on the very outside corner of it, and he came off of that. And that was the best fish I weighed that day. Caught another small keeper shortly after that. Messed around. I caught a limit fairly early, but man, they were little. I think I had 3 or 4 of them that were 1.6, 1.9, 1.12. They weren't even 2-pounders.
14-inch limit, right?
14-inch limit. Okay. And something we're not used to here, but these were small fish. And just same thing, high pressure. The forecast was for the wind to blow that day, and a lot earlier than that. It just never came in. So I knew I couldn't do it in the Elk without the wind. So I went to a row of docks that I haven't fished all year. It's just a bunch of flat docks on a mud flat, very shallow, and pulled out the 1/2-ounce flipping jig, and I caught 3. I think I called 3 there, and I lost one. I lost a good fish that would have definitely helped me in the tournament. But those fish, even though they were barely 2 pounds, were actually my salvation, because I had such small ones after that. And I actually left them biting on those docks. There were plenty docks left that I didn't fish there. But after I caught like the 2nd or 3rd one, I noticed that wind started blowing. That front was coming in. And I thought I needed at least 2 good bites to win. And I said, as much as I'd love to fish every one of those docks with this jig, I've got to catch a big one. So I started that spinnerbait again, but it was out of the west, and it hadn't blown out of the west since I've been there this year. everything had been out of the south, east, north, whatever, and hitting some of the banks that I was fishing, but it was still glass on the stretches that I wanted to fish. And I started running new water with that spinnerbait, just running the windy stuff, and it got blowing pretty good that last hour. I just never caught another one. And that's what I went to the weigh-in with. And once again, I had no idea that, 11, which actually was 11.7 when I weighed in, was enough to do it.
Shimano Shane has a funny comment. He says, if you win Redcrest at Table Rock, they'll name something after you for sure.
Yeah, I'm not even going to think about that. I'm telling you, that Redcrest is going to be a great event. I can't talk about it much because of the information rule, but the fact that I just get to go there is just still mind-boggling to me, and it's close to home. I'm very familiar with the lake, but it'll be a great event. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and Stephanie has a question. She says, how do you stay so calm and collected even when you lose fish? I always have a problem with letting it get to me. I know you mentioned in your regional at Grand, you lost some really key fish, and there was a little section of video on day 3 live on the MLF broadcast where you hooked up with a fish on the backside of a dock cable. You were throwing that spinnerbait, and you got him right up there to the cable, and your co-angler was fumbling around, got in the net, reaching out there, and the fish just popped off. And then I kind of watched you after that, and you just kind of checked your line, just kind of took a deep breath and just did your little roll cast and kind of kept on going. So what goes through your mind when that happens, and how do you battle those demons in your head? Because we all get them. I mean, we all miss fish. I mean, I've done it a ton of times. I could probably have a lot more trophies if I just get that one fish in. I think when we fished, I lost a good fish but anyway, how do you handle that?
It's always tough. I mean, that particular fish, when I was in the tanks getting the weigh in and I knew how close it was going to be, that one ran through my mind like over and over, because he was pushing 3 pounds. He wasn't a 3-pounder, but he was close to it.
Which is a big fish,
A big fish. I mean, it would have given me almost 2 more pounds to my weight, because I had one in there that weighed 1.9, I think, yet 1.9 or 1.12. But that particular fish, I mean, my co hustled up there, basically touched him with the net, tried to get him in there, and the fish was still hot. He hit it behind the cable. It was my fault because I made too long of a cast. I wasn't to the cable yet or close enough. And he hit it immediately and ran at me under the cable. So I spooled him line. I gave him line. I thought he was going to break the line going under the cable. So I let him go running under the cable. And when he finally stopped, I come back, and he's coming back to the cable. And that's when he kind of jumped. And my co tried to get him. And he apologized and said, I'm so sorry. And I just put my hand on his back. I said, dude, he was a long way from being caught. I said, you tried everything you could. So that one was a tough one. But I honestly thought, I told him, like the doc after, I said, dude, I would have called that one out later today anyways, which didn't happen. But no, it's the way I look at it is, if God intended me to have that fish, I would have caught him. You and I talked before, backstage about the regional, I think, and I think I might have mentioned it here as well. The regional, I lost one pushing 7 pounds, if not 7 pounds.
Jeez.
At the net. I mean, at the net the first day. That one there, I mean, shook me up. Because I knew what the fish like that would have done for me. Plus, I had already lost 3 other ones that day. And that one there, she's asking how I handle it. I try to handle it good. I took the trolling motor out in the middle of the pocket, put it on spot lock, and I sat down and I prayed for about 10 minutes.
Really?
And, yeah. So because I needed some strength on that one, but no, I'm human and it affects everybody. But I try to do, I mean, like I said, if it's meant to be, he's going to be in the box. If not, he's not. So that's the way I kind of look at it anymore.
Yeah, and it happens. It happens so fast,
Yeah.
especially around docks in the areas you were fishing.
Yeah.
You know, you were kind of hunkered in behind stuff. There's cables, there's slips, there's lips, there's all kinds of things that are in the water, and you gotta maneuver your fish through those. And you know, you get that bite, you react, and everything's just going 100 miles an hour, and
Mm-hmm.
you make one. Not saying that you made a wrong decision, because you know it's most people would have probably lost that same fish, but you know, if you make one little error, like, well, the thing you said is you should have nosed in maybe a little bit tighter to that cable.
Just a few more feet further.
It's a game of inches, man.
It is. I caught one right after that he hit it behind the dock, and he was back behind the cable, and of course he wasn't a big one, but he was a nice keeper. And he just happened to jump at the net, and I just brought him on in. I mean, when it's just instinct. I mean, rather than wait for the net, I just lifted him over on in. And you just never know what the right move is, but if you've done it as long as you and I have, you a lot of it is just instinct, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But once again, when something happens in a tournament like that, another example is, say a co-angler catches a big fish behind me. If I was meant to catch that fish, I would have caught it. So I'm happy for the co. I mean, I pat him on, good job, man. I mean, and move on. So I fished an All-American at Shreveport, Cross Lake one year, and the last day if I catch two of the ones my co-angler catches, I win the All-American. But I didn't. He caught him behind me. He had 19 pounds. He won the co-angler side, and I was so happy for him. Every one he caught, I was rooting for him. But because I fished past him, if it was meant to be mine, I would have caught him.
Yeah, that's true. All you can do is do the best you can do and then leave it in God's hands. There's no doubt about that. Bunch of people saying congratulations on the win and congratulations for qualifying for the Redcrest. Neil has a question. This is one of the questions I had. You know, you're throwing around a 1 ounce spinnerbait, and a lot of people will say in the fall, you know, typically going smaller is going to get you more bites and maybe put you in the wheelhouse of more fish. But you did exactly the opposite. Talk about the 1 ounce spinnerbait, why you chose that, and obviously you've had some success on in the past, or you would have had something else tied on. But what about that big spinnerbait?
It's just a confidence bait for me. I love that particular spinnerbait. I did well at Kentucky Lake slow rolling it the last day in the Toyota there last year. Had a good finish there. And it just hugs the bottom. I put it on the last day of practice when that wind was blowing so hard. I started off fishing some bluffier stuff, some bigger stuff. So I wanted to hug the bottom and get it out there a little deeper. The water had some heavy stain to it. And in the mornings, those fish weren't on the bank. They were out. Even behind those docks, they weren't on the bank behind those docks. They were closer to the dock. You had to really slow roll it out there in 5-6 feet of water. And they were really coming off of any kind of cover that was out there a little bit deeper, like that sunken dock that I caught that first 5-pounder on. He was like 6 foot deep. In the afternoon is when they moved shallow. And in the afternoon, they didn't miss it. I mean, I could have probably went to a smaller weight spinnerbait in the afternoon, maybe. But with that 1 ounce, I was able to cover so much more water more efficiently with it, covering every depth, the water column. I mean, from a foot all the way out to 6-7 feet of water, I was covering all that a lot faster. And plus it moves so much water. That number 7 willow and the weight of the 1 ounce, it moves so much water and vibration. They come and get it.
Was that like a tandem blade, like what we're looking
Yep.
at here?
Yep. That's the one right
That's
there.
the one. Okay. Is that got a on the R bend there?
Uh-huh.
Is that some type of like support? Because that's
Yes.
an area that bends out, and I've seen guys like actually wrap thread and glue it on there to keep that wire
Yeah.
from opening up. So that
Yep.
comes standard on that bait.
It's standard on that bait. It's pretty awesome. There's and it's titanium wire too. So I'd knock on wood. I've never broke one. I try not to use one that's been overly used in a tournament. I've got quite a few practice baits, but even on practice, I've not broken one on a fish because if a big one, when you get him in, there's times it's mangled up and bent and everything, but you just bend it back and it's good to go again. But that bait is very dear to my heart. I won a regional on Grand Lake.
You could say it's money because it was.
It is money. I won a regional several years ago in October, late October, throwing almost that same bait. It was dirtier, and I caught them down by the dam. But I think it was a 3/4 ounce, and I was using Colorado blades because that water was muddier. But I had 26 pounds the first day and lost. I had a 7-pounder, but lost one that just dwarfed it. It jumped and come off. I would have been pushing 30 pounds easy if I caught that fish. But on the same exact spinner bait, but it was Colorado blades.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a big fan of in the winter time when that water's kind of mid 40s. I've had some good success with a 3/4 or 1 ounce with like a size 7 Colorado blade. Just really just creeping it around things. You're not going to get a lot of bites, but usually when you load up, it's it's a better than average fish for the lake that you're fishing in.
Yep. Yeah.
It's a fun way to catch them.
I had an old friend of mine, very good fishing partner years ago, very early in my career, Bruce Geyer, one of the best stick bait guys on Lake Ozarks years ago. And he always said, if they will bite a spinner bait, it's what you better be throwing because it catches those better fish.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Yeah.
Shimano Shane's got a question for you. He says, was the spinner bait straight out of the package or do you make any modifications to it?
No, straight out of the package. In the mornings, I tried to put a trailer hook on it because I had several nip it and miss it in the morning times whenever they just really weren't committing to it yet. I caught one on the trailer hook one of the days. But when you add the trailer hook, you get hung up a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I was fishing stuff I couldn't see under the water, and that trailer hook swings around and it gets hung up. So you lose some baits back there. I had to reorder from Taylor today. I've got one more tournament left. I'm out. But anyways, in the afternoon when that wind kicked up and they started moving shallow, there was no missing. So I took the trailer hook off in the afternoons because whenever one saw it, he didn't miss it in the afternoon. He absolutely ate it. But there was no modifications to the bait whatsoever.
Do you ever put any sort of a trailer on your spinnerbait, or do you,
I have. Plastic? I have. That the year I won the regional, I was using a pretty big, bulky rubber trailer to basically to keep it up a little bit because this was years ago before live scope. But I noticed that the fish, I was fishing bluffy banks at the dam. I noticed that the fish on my graph were suspended 8 feet under my trolling motor. I was probably in 15 feet of water. But the first big one I caught was out there about 8 foot deep. So I wanted to keep it up just a little, and adding that rubber trailer kind of gave it a little buoyancy and held it up a little bit, even though I was using 3/4 ounce Colorado blades. But this particular tournament, I wanted it on the bottom. I wanted that 1 ounce to get to the bottom and track pretty fast, and it seemed to work. And then also Omega's skirts, with the way they're designed, they've got that little piece on the end of it that just the skirt is a little longer, and you see the end. It acts basically as a trailer back there. That thing's kicking all the time.
Yeah, you're right. That's a nice addition to.
It is very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I've used the times that I was talking about throwing that big spinnerbait in the wintertime. I'll throw just a big swim bait on the back of it for the same reasons, basically, to really slow it down. And then you got an even bigger profile. It moves a little bit more water, and you got this really big profile. And that's, like I said, that's why you don't get a lot of bites on it, but they are some better than average fish when they do load up on it.
And getting back to the question that he asked, why did I choose that bait? The amount of pressure that had been on that lake with all those tournaments, there was so many people fishing the same water with jigs, with shaky heads, even with spinner baits, but just pretty normal stuff. And I wanted to throw something different, something possibly they hadn't seen, something big, kind of like a glide bait is something extreme also that will get a bite. A lot of times where if you flip something in there, they won't bite it, but just something bigger. So that was the reason that I went to the bigger baits.
How much do you see that as a change from, you've been doing this for quite a while. You've fished Lake of the Ozarks a bunch, Grand, a bunch of these different Ozark lakes. And I know you've got a lot of stretches that you have a lot of confidence. How much have you seen, your lure selection change over the last 4, 5, 6 years? Basically what you just said in a nutshell is you got so many people that are throwing a 3/8 ounce or a 1/2 ounce spinnerbait, or they're throwing a 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce jig. I noticed the last BFL I fished at Lake of the Ozarks, I catch a lot of fish out of the back of the boat on a shaky head. And I'm typically throwing 3/16 a lot of the times, sometimes a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
But my boater was throwing like a 3/8 shaky head.
Mm-hmm.
Similar worm, but there was definitely a difference. I know the guy in the front is getting, he's getting tickets stuff, but it was obvious enough that the fall rate made a difference. And I don't know if that's something that you've seen over the years, because they are seeing so many of the lighter, the slower fall stuff, the lighter, the same profile. Are there a lot of times where you're having to, get away from what's normally being thrown out there just to, give the fish something different?
Yeah, and that's a very good question, a good point. This fall, even the regional and even the Toyota I finished third in on Lake of the Ozarks, I was using a heavier jig, a 7/8 Pro Mega, when I've always just thrown a 1/2 ounce. But some of that was I was fishing a little deeper docks. And but a lot of it was because of the rate of fall. They were reacting to that fast fall. In fact, I'm working with Taylor right now on possibly designing another, I don't know if I should say anything, but a flipping jig that might be a little bit heavier, but that's may or may not be in the works. But he's got some quality products out there. The 1/2 ounce flipping jig is just, gosh, my bread and butter, my favorite jig in the world. And it is tied on at all times. But this year I preferred a faster fall. And I do, when you're short lining them, I like that beefier, heavier hook, like the flipping jig has in it. And so, yeah.
You're throwing that pitching jig mostly, or the actual flipping jig? Like that
flipping,
that heavier one? It's the flipping one right here?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's the one. I can skip that thing. It's maybe because I've just used it for so long and so many years. I can put that bait wherever I want to, and it has the perfect weed guard, the perfect hook, everything that I could ever ask for in a jig. So, but there's very few 3/4 ounce.
3/4 ounce.
Yeah, there's very few 3/4 or heavier flipping jigs on the market. There's a lot of football jigs, which are fine, but
that's true.
With most of them have a little bit lighter wire hook and stuff like that. So, and they don't skip as good. A football jig will not skip near like that 1/2 ounce jig. So, but you asked about color. I don't know. I'm pretty basic on color. My favorite, I guess, all around in relatively clear water or a slight stain is that Joby color. It's kind of a green and blue.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That one in the Ozark special has got some brown and green in it. and I use a Bojangles trailer, either a Z Daddy or a Nos Crawl is what I usually use. And not a huge color guy, pretty basic on that. But and if the water's dirty, I go black and blue.
You ever use that Missouri Crawl? I mean, that color got hot there for a while.
Does it have that green in it?
Yeah, this is different than the Missouri Crawl that I'm thinking of. It was more of a kind of a black and chartreuse almost.
Yeah, I think that may be one of the ones I had tied on. Maybe when they did the top 10 baits photos, I think that's the one I had tied on. It had a couple of strands of chartreuse in it. So.
Right. Yeah. I remember some of the first jigs that I bought at Lake of the Ozarks were the Omega, and they were that actual. I just thought it had a pretty cool head design. You know, it's got kind of a unique, that kind of triangular shaped head, and that Chobe color was. I bought a handful of those because I thought it looked pretty good. Just a good all around color. Back to the spinnerbait, and then we'll talk a little bit about the jig a little bit more. But as far as line, line weight, pound tests, like your rod, your reel, that kind of stuff, because that's not your average spinnerbait that you can just throw, like a 7 foot medium heavy, probably. I mean, that's kind of a specialized deal. So talk a little bit about that and about your setup on that.
Yeah, actually, my co-angler asked me what kind of line I was using because I'm draping it over a cable every cast. And it's 20 pound, 100% fluorocarbon P line, and the rod was a 7.4 Legend Extreme. 7.4 is a pretty big rod for throwing a spinnerbait, but 7.4 is what I use all the time. If my flipping stick's 7.4. If I'm throwing a football jig out deep, it's a 7.4. Carolina rig, Alabama rig, 7.4. You can throw a glide bait with that 7.4. And the reason I try to do that is if you are in a tournament where you're switching from spinnerbait to flipping a jig, I like for the rod lengths to be exactly the same for the accuracy of your cast. If you go switching back from a 7.1 to a 7.4, your first few casts, it takes a while to adapt to that.
Yeah.
But also because of the weight of the lure, I needed something big and heavy to place that bait back there. Like you said, you cannot use a 7.1 or 7 foot rod to throw that spinnerbait back there. It's just too limber, and it's not enough rod to do anything. Plus, when you hook one, that 7.4, you had a lot more leverage getting him out of there. I used an 8-to-1 Tatula, Daiwa Tatula reel. I wanted the fast speed when I did hook them to control them better. So I had to make myself really slow down with that 8-to-1 because some of those bites were out there further. But once again, that 1 ounce hugs the bottom so good that that really wasn't an issue.
I know I've been fortunate enough to fish with you in 2 BFLs, and it was kind of funny. They were back to back, which was kind of odd. But the one on Lake of the Ozarks, you were fishing. You had a little bit of a spinnerbait bite going, and it kind of went away sort of during the tournament. But you came through an area, and I think you had a bump on a spinnerbait, didn't get it, and you flipped the jig in there and caught the fish, and you immediately boxed the fish and you sat down and you pulled all the line off of your reel in the middle of the tournament. I don't know if you remember this or not, but
I think I barely do. Yeah.
You pulled all the line off, and I was like, I've never seen, and you didn't have a backlash or anything. You didn't have any bad spots in your line. There was nothing wrong with the line. You probably just put it on the night before or whatever, but you sat down in your boat, got out some other line, pulled all that line off, and I want to say you put 17 or 20 pound line. You beefed up the line.
I've put heavier line on.
Yeah, you weren't. I don't think you were anticipating that there was going to be a jig bite. But as soon as you had in the back of your mind, you had that gut feeling that, hey, there might be a jig bite, and I've done this enough that I've showed up at a gunfight with a knife that I'm going to sit down here right now and I'm going to take my 17 off and put 20 pound off. And I thought that was cool. I always remember that because most people, and this kind of ties in with having a 7'4" rod with 20-pound line versus a 7-foot rod with, 14-pound line. But
Yeah.
most people would have just continued fishing and possibly lost a very critical fish that could have made a difference in that tournament because they didn't sit down and make that adjustment, upsize the line, or reach in the rod docker and get that, that beefed up rod that's gonna do what it needs to do. So I always remember that. I mean, that makes total sense what you did, but most of us are too wound up in the moment, and we want to just keep covering water, and it ends up biting us in the butt later on down the road.
Yeah, I think I remember that vaguely, but I don't know that I planned on catching those quality fish that shallow on a jig as I did that day. I think we'd gotten some stained water in the back
Sure
or
did.
some rain or something like that. And then when I caught that fish, I'm like, I have done this before. And I thought, I'm going to put some string on because I know what could happen. And I think later that day I did catch a couple more pretty nice ones, shallow.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, you needed it.
Yeah.
For sure. Here's an interesting question from Peter. And then I want to get back into the jig a little bit more. What separates the mental side from a guy like yourself and an angler that has never won a major tournament like you have, but they have the necessary tools? I mean, that right there, there's something about experiencing good finishes against really quality fields of anglers that, there's something that happens, whether it's, God guiding you or it's just experience. It's probably a combination of all those things, but there's different things that happen when you start getting on a roll. You start getting confidence and you start experiencing, high finishes in the tournaments. And I kind of elaborated on that question a little bit, but what's your thoughts on that question?
I don't know. I mean, with the amount of years that I've had, one thing that I do so much better now than I used to do was I would never stray from what I did in practice. I had a game plan, and that's what I was going to do. And I've learned that, man, you have to let the fish tell you. Weather changes, watercolor changes, wind direction changes throughout the tournament. And you have to make changes with all of those situations. So I'm not afraid to scrap what was working yesterday to try to catch fish throughout the tournament. An example of that was going to those shallow docks that last day. I hadn't been there all year. I fished them in previous years, and I guessed that they would probably be there. Hoped that they would probably be there, but I had no idea. But because of the conditions with zero wind, and I was in that area, I actually had a few other docks that were down lake that were probably better big fish docks, but it was a pretty good run away that were shallow like that I wanted to go to, but I thought I need to stay right in this area because when that wind starts blowing, I want to throw a spinnerbait again. But just, I don't know what to say. I don't want to say the knowledge or whatever, but just the ability anymore just to let the fish tell me. I mean, if you go for an hour and a half and it's not working, just I guess the calmness or whatever to say, hey, I need to try something else. Let's figure this out. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not so much stuck in my initial game plan as I used to be years ago. Once again, had I not practiced it years ago, if I hadn't fished that bank or did this pattern, I wasn't going to do it during the tournament. Well, that's foolish. Not so much. I mean, you have to let the fish tell you what to do. And I treat a lot of the tournament days as a practice day. And even that last day, I was essentially still practicing, hoping that they were going to be on those docks.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, man. It's like, it's so hard to do in a tournament situation is keep an open mind and fish kind of free like you are practicing. But I know some of my best days that I've had out on the water, it's like kind of back to the spinnerbait and the slick water deal. You're fishing, it's kind of not happening, and your mind kind of starts spinning, and then you notice maybe a little ripple. And you're like, okay, well, you could just keep on fishing, But if you're paying attention to what's going on, you'll notice that little ripple, and you'll notice the wind picked up just a few miles an hour, and you'll immediately, your gut's telling you, I need to go run to an area that those fish will be triggered by just that little bit of a shift in the wind, or maybe the wind direction, or clouds. It's sunny. Maybe you had a top water bite the day before and it's just not happening. All of a sudden you get some cloud cover. If you're paying attention and you're in tune with your environment, that might be the time to just pick up a top water and at least check it. There's little like subtle clues.
Absolutely.
They're there happening around you.
Yeah.
And that goes to being open-minded, not so stubborn, stuck into a pattern. If you're just kind of fishing free, you seem more likely to pick up on those little subtle hints that Mother Nature is giving you, and that can make a big difference.
Yeah, the two fish I caught on the Elk River riprap that day, one of them was just a keeper. The other one was heavy too, but they were so big for me. I mean, I had one little keeper, and they were so big for me as far as confidence, because it's like 1 o'clock. And to put those two in there, bang, bang on a stretch of rock that I had zero intention of fishing. I mean, none whatsoever. Just fished it because there's a slightest little breeze going in there, and they chewed that spinnerbait up.
Here's another question by Neil, and this is something I kind of wanted to touch on a little bit too. You said you were using live scope to look at brush. Were the fish that you're catching that tight to the bottom / structure / cover that you could not see them? And then kind of how much did you use live scope, and how much has that become part of your game, now and into the future?
Yeah, the ones that I was catching behind those docks, I was not able to see those. I was able to see the brush and stuff, but I could not see those. They were on the bottom. And the ones that were out a little bit, the last day, the last tournament day when I had that small limit, I went back to my key area, and there was a sunken dock in 15 foot of water that I saw big bass in every day swimming around in that I could not catch. I tried with a jig and everything. And I came to that spot again, and I shined out there, and on the very top of that thing, that dock came up to about 10 feet deep. On the very top was the biggest mark ever, beautiful, sitting at the very top of that. I fired that 1 ouncer out there past it, and I'm coming on, and I get right to the top of his head, and he just slams it. I mean, pushed it to me.
Oh.
And I'm like, dude, this is the one. I get up here, and he's under the net or under the boat just dogging. I mean, my heart's pounding. And I get him up to the surface, and he's a great big striper. Laying on that dock just absolutely killed that spinnerbait, and it broke my heart. But to answer your question there on whether I could see them, in the regional, I saw those fish. Most of them were suspended 5 feet down under the docks. And a lot of them, the docks might have been 10 feet deep. I'd throw that jig in there, and they'd follow it to the bottom, and almost every one of them would pick it up off the bottom. As soon as it got to the bottom, you lift it up, he had it. I could see those fish, but this week in this tournament, I saw very few of those fish. They were pretty tight to the bottom.
Gotcha. Well, let's do a giveaway here. We will only pull this up here, and we'll do a mega prize pack. If I can remember how to do this. Okay. Yeah. So if you want to get involved in the mega prize pack giveaway, hashtag all capitals OMEGA. Just type that in the comments section, and we'll let that run for a few minutes, and then we will do that giveaway. Back to the jig, Roger. You talked about the 7'4" rod, and then the 20-pound test. I'm assuming you're using that same setup that you did on the spinnerbait, or similar setup for the jig.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what about trailers? Just kind of walk us through some of your trailer selections and why you choose those colors or those styles of trailers.
Yeah, the the trailers I use are Bojangles. It's a local company here out of Eldon. Great company. They've got some quality plastic products. I joined up with them. I think it was earlier this spring, and they have several different ones, but the ones that I use are called the NOS Crawl, and then the Z-Daddy. It's got the shape of a beaver with the twin tail on the back of it. And both of them are equally as good. I don't know. I use, especially fishing those deeper docks, and Chase found this out as well because he uses the same baits. He's been fishing the VFLs as a boater and stuff too. I like a bait that's going to have a trailer that's got some legs that are kicking. There you go. You got it. You're awesome, dude.
I'm trying.
You are outstanding. But some legs that kick pretty good. At Lake Ozarks, I use that electric blue color with that Chobe. And I mean, I fished with Dennis in the OMTT championship here after the Toyota thing. And that's the one right there. And he said, man, there is something about that blue, because I was getting some bites behind him with that thing on my jig. But anyways, I like the legs to kick because in a day's time, you'll get one or two bites reeling that thing back in off the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And they can be good ones. Whenever you got the legs kicking, it's almost like, I don't know, a swim bait or a crankbait or something that's coming pretty fast back. It's just a reaction. And it happens quite often when you're fishing those deeper docks. But yes, those are the ones, those and that Z-Daddy.
That's a sneaky color. It seems like, I mean, you know, back in the day, that sapphire blue was pretty common on a black and blue jig, you know, with a chunk or something. People would throw, you know, a big chunk on there. That was kind of that deal. But it seems like for me personally, I don't see a lot of people throwing that. And I remember when we fished Truman, I was with you and you were flipping a little crawl that was that color, and you were catching them pretty good. So I kind of, you know, it's interesting how you kind of move away from things at times, and then all it takes is, you know, just one good day either by yourself or you know, watching somebody else do it, and it kind of just it makes you revisit, you know, that same color or that same bait, because man, there's so many different styles of baits out there, not just soft plastics but hard baits. And you know, like a chug bug. You know, I used to fish a chug bug a long time ago, and I got away from it. And then I went fishing with my buddy Dave. Oh, I don't know, like 3 years ago. And he was always talking about the chug bug, and started catching them on the chug bug. And now that's one of my favorite baits to be thrown when it's like a popper style bait, but you can also walk it too. It's kind of a combination thing, and it's kind of finessey. It's not overpowering, but it's another one of those baits that I used to fish. And I kind of got into spooks, and then you get into ploppers, and you get into shower blows and sammies and all this other stuff. And you forget about that little chug bug. I know Jim Dill's a big fan of the chug bug, but it's definitely back in the arsenal. Are there some baits like that you know, you've, you know, forgot about and then kind of revisited, or, you know, I don't know. It seems like we've all got something that's just kind of come back to the forefront over the years.
I throw a Pico pop every once in a while, like at Truman. It's a big pop R. It's a wooden bait. I mean, it's old bait, but I've got a couple of those yet. I won a Red Man, I think it was years ago, with that, and I still throw those a little bit at Truman Lake. But yeah, that sapphire blue, I won a BFL on the Arkansas River, flipping that with just a 1/4 ounce weight, going behind a lot of people, and caught fish all day on that thing. And yeah, rigging it that way is very subtle. And that particular day on Truman Lake with you, it saved my day, because I wasn't getting bit on that other stuff. I ended up catching a limit at the very end, I think, and that thing really saved my bacon, because I wasn't getting bit on the traditional stuff.
No, it got really tough there. I mean, that lake looks so good. The water was up in the bushes, and it's like it looked like there'd be a bass anywhere you threw your line, but that wasn't the case. It was just it was fishing kind of small that day for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Well, let's give this away. We got 41 people that entered into the drawing. We'll go ahead and let the wheel of fortune spin. See who the lucky winner is for tonight. Aaron, congratulations. Get a hold of me on Facebook at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty, or Instagram 10 Horse Monty 6, and I will get your information and I will get it over to Taylor and he can take care of you. I think from what he was saying, you're going to get a couple of those 1 ounce spinnerbaits and you're going to get a couple of those 7/8 ounce jigs, and all you got to do is go out and throw them around docks and you're going to come in with however many 40-something pounds of fish.
Hold on your rod tight.
Exactly. Something I wanted to talk about is faith. You know, your faith is really strong. And how has faith played a role in your life as a person and also as a fisherman? I see a lot of it's encouraging. You see a lot of these younger fishermen, you know, talking about their faith. You see, you know, Trey McKinney, Drew Gill, the guy that you tied with.
Yeah.
He's, you know, he's a big believer. Just a bunch of these guys that are really, they're not afraid to talk about how they feel. And you're the same way. Like when you called me earlier, you were at church, you know, you're coming from church, came home to do this live stream, and you know, I appreciate that. But how has faith played a role in your life?
It's just, I mean, in my life in general, it's just changed me completely. I mean, I've been a church going person all of my life, but it didn't mean that I was an actual Christian all my life. I mean, I went to church, I went through the motions, but until I actually had a relationship with Christ, that's when things really changed. And there were several different moments that did that. But when that happens, it gives you a sense of a peace. The lady asked the question how I handle losing fish and stuff. And my answer was, it wasn't supposed to be. If it was supposed to be, it would have happened. I truly believe that. And it's just like I won the tournament on Table Rock, the regional, several years ago by a few ounces. It was not as close as this, but it was very close. I knew I had that tournament won just because of the events that had happened leading up to it. If you have time, I'll tell this story because
I do have time, definitely.
Okay, my practice day, I went up the James River to flip boat docks, you know, basically to go up there and flip docks. This big old thunderstorm rolls in, and of course I'm a wimp, and so I look around for a dock to get underneath. Yeah, and there happened to be this single slip dock, little bitty dock that had some bumpers on it where I wouldn't tear my boat up, so I slid in it, sat there. If I recall, I might have done my Bible study in there while it was raining, and it got done raining, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go start flipping some docks again. So I back out of this boat slip, and I'm idling out of the pocket, look at my 2D sonar, and out there in about 26 feet of water, I mean, there's mark. And I'm like, man, those look like bass. So I shut the engine off, sitting down, grab my football jig that I had laying there, sitting in my seat, yet I flip it over the side of the boat, my 1 ounce jig, sitting there just kind of dragging it. I felt something get on it. I stood up and set the hook, and it was a 3-pounder. So I went, okay. I took him off, turned him loose, and I'm still standing in the console. Flip it out there again, gets to the bottom. One gets on it, set the hook, it's a 3-pounder. I went, okay. So now I get on my trolling motor, and I'm out there looking around, fishing. This is before live scope. And I catch 2 or 3 more good ones. And I went, okay. I put all this other stuff away, and the rest of the day, all I did was look for places like that. I mean, this place wasn't a point. It wasn't really anything in particular. It just, I don't know, kind of a roll off, but it was full of shad, a lot of shad there. I fished a dozen more places, looked like that on the graph, and I found one more spot that really had them. So long story short, first day, I fished with Melinda Mize, or Melinda Freeman now.
Yeah.
And I think we're both leading it after the first day. We had a limit there in like no time. And I left it. So the second day, I pull in, and it takes me a little longer between the two spots, and I catch my limit. And I think I'm probably in second or third place going into the last day. Well, the last day I pull out there, and takes me a little longer again. But the second spot that I found, it was every cast, but they were the same. I had them on balance beams. I was just gaining ounces. And I told my co-angler, good young man from Arkansas, and I said, I've made the All-American. But I said, the only chance I'm going to win this tournament is if I catch one shallow, a big one shallow. And I said, my brother and I used to catch big ones on those two docks right over there. So I idle over there, pull out my 1/2 ounce flipping jig, and the second dock I flip, I catch one about 3.5 pounds. And I went, okay. Then I ran up river, fished every place my brother and I used to catch them. Just nothing at all. So, I mean, I'm way up the James, Cape Fair, past Cape Fair. And we were out of the dam, and I had a long run back, and I'm looking at my watch, and I said, we got to go. So I'm running back down river, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, man, I've still got 5 minutes, maybe 10 at most, 5 minutes. And I thought, where's another shallow dock that I could fish, that I could catch one? And I went, you know what? I went into those docks to fish during that rainstorm because I'd caught them there before whenever I went and fished those docks. And I said, maybe all those fish that were out there deep, there might have been a few go up there shallow on those docks. So I pull back in. There's 3 docks there. I fished the first one, nothing. And I'm fishing pretty fast because we got to go. I fished the second one, nothing. And I get to the third dock, the one that God chased me under during that rainstorm. And there's a little shallow pad behind it, and I flip behind it, and I catch a 4-pounder. And throw one back, and I said, we got to go. And, I think I won by 2 ounces or so. And so the very dock that he chased me under is the very dock that I ended up catching that fish on at the very end. So I thought that all didn't dawn on me till I'm about halfway back. And I'm like, dude, you just won. If he's taken me this far, you just won this tournament. And I had a sense of peace in that way, and that I was the last one to weigh, and I knew I had it. So, but no, God has blessed me so tremendously with everything, with good health, with a beautiful wife, great kids. And there's been other things that have happened in my lifetime that are far from coincidence. And including this weekend, putting me on those fish in the last 5 minutes of practice when I had no intention of fishing there. So I've been very blessed.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. I know, I can't remember. I think you said it on stage last weekend where you were running and you were struggling.
Mm-hmm.
You were praying as you were running. And, those prayers don't go unanswered in one way or another. A lot of times they're not super obvious and we don't see them at first, but if we go back and reflect, there's typically a reason why things happen.
And they happen on God's timing too.
That's true. Exactly.
My first All-American tournament was at Lake Hamilton in Arkansas, and I lost a couple of fish the very last day of that thing. And I should have, if I land them, I win. It's just that simple, and it didn't. And that was before I knew Christ very well. And I was pretty bitter for a long time. I was like, why? Why did that happen to me? Poor, pitiful me. Why did that happen? But as I grew older, I came to realize that I'm at this point, I'm about 100% sure that I wasn't able to handle that kind of success at that age. I probably would have maybe pursued a fishing career if I win that tournament. And you know as well as I do, that doesn't always work out best for everybody. It may have not, but I do know that it would have went to my head like big time at that particular point in my career. So he knew that I wasn't ready for that, and consequently took it away from me that last day. But he blessed me so many times later on. So
yeah, that's awesome. I'd like to share just a really small testimony real quick.
You bet.
Since we're letting it all out there. So last year was a pretty good year for me as far as tournament fishing. It's been, the best as far as accolades that I've fished, but 2023 was not. It was a struggle. I don't know that I even cast a check in the BFLs as a co-angler. I might have cashed one, but it was rough. It was just really, really rough. It just seemed like nothing really came together. I fished hard. I can't say that I didn't fish any, less harder than I have any other times in my life. I was focused. I did all the things that normally brought me some success in the past, and I just kind of had a bitter feeling at the end of 2023. Well, coming into 2024, I see my buddy Mike Marfell on there. We had signed up for the Anglers in Action team trail down there at Lake of the Ozarks, and we fished that first tournament. And when you finish up your season, it's if you don't qualify for the regionals, it's September. If you qualify, it's October. But you've got that winter period, and I fish all the time because I'm constantly creating content for the channel. So it's not like I just hang up my fishing poles and wait till spring. But throughout the winter, I'm not fishing any tournaments. So the tournament season is over, and you kind of take a breather, and you're excited about the upcoming season, and it gets into February. You're doing all the things that you need to do to prepare for the season. And February comes around, early March, and you're like, okay, this is going to be, I'm leaving last year behind me. This is a new year. I'm turning over a new leaf. Things are got to get that momentum going. I need to get started on a positive note. And we fished that Anglers in Action tournament, and we stunk it up. It just did not happen. And I was driving home. The way we typically do it is I live in Cape. I drive up to St. Louis area, meet Mike, and then I jump in the vehicle with him, and we drive down to Lake of the Ozarks. So after the Derby, we're driving back to Mike's, and then I've got an hour and a half drive back home, and it's late. We've been fishing for 2 or 3 or 4 days or whatever. You're tired. I got to go to work the next day, and maybe 9, 10 o'clock at night. I think it's probably 10 o'clock at night. I still gotta stay awake, and you're thinking about everything. You're just thinking about life. You're hashing out the tournament. Could you did something different? Where'd you mess up? Maybe I missed this fish or something. You got all that stuff going through your head. So I'm driving back 55 south, and I'm disgusted with myself. I'm just not feeling good. I'm just I'm really down on myself. And I know it's only a bass tournament, and life is wonderful. I've got everything's going great. I got a good job, good family, kids are healthy, all that stuff. But sometimes we're selfish. A lot of times we're selfish. And I was thinking about myself. And I'm like, man, I'm just disappointed. I was really hoping that things were going to get on the right foot right off the bat. So I'm like, I gotta get my stuff together, man. I gotta change. I've just been doing a few things that probably weren't the best for me health wise, and letting some things slide and this and that. And, we ain't got to dive into all that, but I had plenty of room for improvements.
Yeah.
And I was praying, I'm driving down Interstate 55. There's no traffic. I'm by myself. It's pitch black. New moon, probably. I don't remember exactly, but it wasn't a full moon for sure. And I'm just driving. I'm having all these thoughts, and I'm like, God, I got to get my stuff together. I need to make some changes. You know, I go to church, but there's times in my life where I may not go for 2 months, you know, and then I'll get regular and be a little more consistent. But at that little stretch, I was kind of wandering a little bit, you know, so I'm like, okay, when I get home, you know, I'm gonna clean some stuff up, and I know what I need to do, and I'm just driving, and I look over above the tree line in this field, and there's a shooting star. I'm kind of getting choked up thinking about this.
Dude, I hear you, buddy.
There's this shooting star, and it wasn't one that was like there for half a second and it was gone. It kind of lingered for like a couple seconds, and that's kind of a long time, you know. And it just shot across the sky really slow, and there was no doubt in my mind as I'm making that trip home that was God sending me a sign. And that happens. If you're paying attention, you do get little signs here, little signs there. But I felt in my heart that was a little sign, and he was saying, you're thinking right. Like right now, what you're feeling, you know, what's going through your body, that is where you need to be going. That's what you need to be thinking. You're in your right mind right now.
Yeah, he heard your prayer.
Yeah, and it was just, there was no denying it. It wasn't like, was that just a coincidence, or did that really happen? Or no, it was like boom, like a punch right square in the forehead. There's no doubt about it. And so, you know, I got home, I thought about it, I told my wife about it. And there was a couple other things that happened over the course of the next week or so. So I started getting more regular with church. You know, I didn't have a beer for like 2.5 months, you know, because I'd have a beer or two a week. You know, I was never really crazy about it, but I drink more than I normally would. And so I kind of cleaned up that. I started eating a little bit better. You know, I was going to church a little bit more regularly. In the first tournament in the BFLs on Kentucky Lake, I zeroed. But that was in that couple week period after the anglers in action. There was just kind of that little fuzzy period there where I was still kind of cleaning things up. Long story short, last year after that zero at Kentucky Lake, I think I ended up getting 5th place in my next BFL, and I had 6 checks in a row. I ended up getting 4th place in the super tournament at Kentucky Lake. I go to Pickwick Lake for the regional. I end up winning the regional. I mean, you don't see that coming. I was just going down there with hopes of making day 3. And then when I made day 3, I was just hoping that there was some wild chance that I would actually finish in the top 6 and qualify for the All-American, because that's always been a dream. You know, it's so hard to qualify. And of course, back of my head was, you're going to screw this up. You know, I already thought I messed it up on day 2 because I only came in with 1 fish, but it was so tight that I was still in 5th place. Day 1, I was in 5th place. Day 2, I was in 5th place. And that's another thing that happened. In that tournament on Pickwick Lake, some of the best live scopers in the Tennessee River had qualified for day 3. You had Mateo Toronto, you had Jake Lawrence, Clint Knight.
I was there. I was there.
All the scopers, man, they were dialed in. They were catching bigs. And I drew the one guy, Trent Surratt, who is a Pickwick hammer, but he fished below the dam. I drew probably the one guy that I actually had a chance to have a good bag. And I was tied. This is what's funny. I was tied day 5 or day 2. I was tied in 5th place with a guy named Barry Gunner. Was it 5th place or 6th place? I can't remember how that went down, but there was a tie. And because I'd had a bigger bag the day before, I got to stay in 5th. Instead of dropping to 6th, I stayed in 5th. If I would have dropped in 6th, I would have been fishing behind
with somebody else.
Yes. Totally different day 3.
Yes.
That's
not an accident.
That happened. It was supposed to happen that way. So long story short, I win that regional. I win a brand new Phoenix. I qualify for the All-American. I get to go to the All-American. You know, so that whole short period, about a year, well, and extending into this year, I won a BFL at Wren Lake. You know, I just happened to have a weekend off. My wife and family were in Europe for 2 weeks, and I thought, well, I'll just go fish Wren Lake. It's in Southern Illinois. I hadn't fished Wren Lake in 10 years. I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to try. I'm going to tie on a black trick worm on a shaky head, and I'm going to throw it around and see what happens. I end up winning that. So this all happens within a 1 year period.
Yeah.
And to me, it becomes obvious that when you're doing the best you can and you're trying to be humble and trying to walk somewhere, and I'm no, I'm not saying I'm, this or that, but I'm saying for me personally, I did kind of clean some stuff up and I
Yes.
started walking in a
Yeah.
better direction.
Yes.
And I think that that had to have played somewhat of a role in doing better in these tournaments. I mean, it's always better if you got God on your side, is I guess what I'm getting at. So thanks for listening to me ramble on.
That's a great testimony. It really is. And I'm glad you shared that. That is truly, truly very, very familiar. And we all fail. We fail every day, but if you're trying to do your best and stuff, so God will reward you. There's no question. There was one other instance, and it was years ago, a regional at Dardanelle, and this is one that really opened my eyes. I'm going to cut through all of it, but I was stinking real bad until the last day. The water came up the last day, and a local guy had told me if the water goes up, go to the grass. And he told me fish here, 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 and here, and I did. Well, I caught a 5-pounder immediately, and then I went to fish some more areas and didn't catch much. Caught another 4-pounder, and at the end of the day, pulled back in that same exact spot, pulled back in there, swimming a jig in the grass, and lost 3 that were pushing 5 pounds in the last hour. Would have won the tournament. Would have, of course, went to the All-American. But I went home that day, driving home, feeling so sorry for myself, so full of pity. And that was back in the bag phone days, cell phones.
Yeah,
and you didn't want to answer it when you were roaming. So I had a couple of calls in Arkansas yet, and I didn't answer. And then finally, when I got to Branson, I wasn't roaming anymore. And I took this call, and it was my brother-in-law, Kevin. And it was weird. He didn't ask about fishing, nothing. He said, Roger, he said, where you at? And I said, I'm in Branson. And he said, hey, when you get home, Debbie and Lacey, Chase wasn't born yet, they're not going to be there. Lacey's my daughter. And I said, well, what's going on, Kevin? He said, well, they took Lacey up to the Columbia Children's Hospital. They're doing some tests. And I said, Kevin, what's going on? He said, well, they don't know. They're just doing some tests. I said, Kevin, it's a long drive home. What's going on? And he said, well, they mentioned she might have leukemia. Yeah. So, I mean, you talk about a slap in the face. Because, it was poor, pitiful me. I had a guy traveling with me. I felt sorry for him because I didn't talk the whole way from Arkansas to Branson all the way home. But, from losing a little green fish to having your daughter perhaps having leukemia, it puts things in the light. So we fought that for for about a year. It actually turned out being a disease called ITP. And I can't even pronounce what it was, but it's a blood disorder. And it finally corrected itself. But I can remember sitting in front of church, trying to go into church, but the door was locked, and I just wanted to be closer to God and just praying, saying, if you'll take care of this, I'll follow you. And he did.
Yeah. That's good stuff.
So, yeah.
So this is still on the topic, but a little bit off. Why doesn't he, and maybe this happens for you, it never happens to me, when you slide your jig way up underneath that dock into that dark hole back there, and you're like, God, will you please let a 5-pounder pick up that jig? Maybe it happens to you, but it never happens to me. It's usually late in the day when I just need that one bite, and pray for that fish to pick it up, and it never happened. So he answers a lot of prayers, but for me, he never answers that one, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I honestly, I don't think I've ever asked for that one, but
I'm struggling. When I get to that point, I'm struggling.
I hear you. I've been there so many times. That second day when I went to the Elk River, it was glass out there. It was easy driving, and I could concentrate. And I said a pretty good prayer there, and just, when it's all said and done, I just pray for His will to be done. But once again, yeah, my faith has changed, and it's so much stronger than it used to be. And we go to a fantastic church. We have a fantastic church family here, good support group. Chase is awesome. My daughter Lacey works at a Bible camp full time, her and her husband. So we're surrounded with great people, and just completely blessed, and I don't know, just completely, utterly humbled after what happened last weekend. So undeserving. I mean, to have just being able to fish as long as I have and as many years as I have and still be healthy. And I retired early. I'm just 61. I retired 2 years ago, and just been able to do that. And then to have this happen this week, it's just been, I don't know, it's indescribable.
Yeah. Let's do this last giveaway here. And then I wanted to ask you, we'll just stay on here a little bit more, a couple more questions, and we'll wrap it up. I know you've got a lot going on tomorrow, and you've been doing these all day today. Did you have, I mean, I think I probably already know the answer, but coming into the weigh-in, you had a rough day 3. You didn't have what you had on day 1 and day 2, but coming in, standing in the weigh-in line, how are you feeling? Did you have any idea that you were even remotely close to winning it? And then talk us through going up on stage, and when you're standing up there with Drew, and Chris Jones takes his hand off the scale and the number is revealed. What was going through your mind, once you bagged your fish and you're walking up, standing at the tanks all the way up to where you actually won the tournament?
It was intense, to say the least. Once I realized, when I got to the docks down there, Chase came down and said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "Dude," I said, "I don't have them." I said, "I got 11 pounds. I hope to stay in the top 10. And he said, "Well, you might be surprised." He said, "Whenever the live stream went off, they had you leading by an ounce." And I went, "No way." He said, "Now there were some people not reporting." And I'm like, "Okay, those are the ones with 18 pounds, But anyways, once we got up to the tanks there, people get talking. I'm second to last. Justin Lukemeyer is behind me, and Justin said, "I've only got 9 pounds." And I'm standing there next to Adam Boley, and he said, "I don't have them." He said, "I might have 10 pounds. And then there's Greg Bohannon. He said, "I've only got 4. All these guys are right there with me." And of course, Drew had a good day, a very good day.
Yeah, he did.
He led for a long time. He was in the 20s, and they worked their way down all the way to me. He was still leading, and Chase came up to me when there were about 3 people left in front of me, and he said, "If I've done the math right, you need 11.7 to beat him." And I said, "Chase, I don't have it. My Bubba scale said 11 pounds. He said, "You don't know that." He said, "They're not always accurate." And he told me, he went back over there later and he said, "Lord, just please let those fish gain ounces, just whatever it might be." He told me that later. And but anyways, whenever Chris called me up there, I took my bag of fish and I dropped them in there. And you know how they do. They put their arm over it immediately so you can't see it. But there was a split second by the time I dropped those fish in there that he hadn't have his arm on there yet. And I saw it bounce 11.8, 11.7. He put his arm on it.
Oh.
And I'm like, "You got to be kidding me." So he's sitting there going over this whole thing, talks about my accomplishments, and he says, "Drew, come over here. We need to witness this." And I don't know if Chase's math is right, I don't know what I need yet. And he said, Roger, you need 11.7 to take over the lead. So my heart isn't beating at all, and my eyes are glued only on that scale. And he said, here we go. And he takes his arm off, and it blinks 11.8, 11.7, 11.8, 11.7, 11.8, 11.7, and the fish starts to kick. He puts his arm back on there again. I'm like, dude, push the button. I said, push the button, dude. Either one of those is good. Do not let it go 11.6.
Oh, no.
And so he looks at both of us, lifts his arm again, 11.8, 11.7, and it kind of settles on 11.7. He pushes the button and he calls 11.7. And, you know, I was numb because I didn't want to disrespect Justin. I knew that he didn't have it, but I couldn't celebrate too much then yet because he still needed to weigh in. But I also knew that I'd probably just won. But I just, wow, the whole time fishing this tournament, to me, it was just another tournament. I didn't think about what was at stake. I didn't think about the monetary value. I didn't think about the Redcrest. I just wanted to do the best that I could to try to win this tournament. And then, but when it became a reality is when that's when it hit me. And just, it's still not, I can't believe it. So.
Did you know the tiebreaker? Like Jay Beffa has a question. Did you know what the tiebreaker was? Because that was a new one to me. I didn't know exactly how that shook out.
I knew about the tiebreaker, but I at that time didn't know I was tied. I honestly thought I beat him by an ounce.
Oh, okay.
At that time, I thought I needed 11.7. I thought that 11.7 was going to put me 1 ounce more than him.
Right.
And it wasn't till a few minutes later, Chris Jones said that up there. And he said, Roger, you were actually tied with Drew, but because of the tiebreaker, you were leading going into today. And you also had, there's two tiebreakers. You also had the biggest sack in the first 2 days. I had 15 something the second day. He said, you won on both tiebreakers. So you beat him by the ounce. And I'm like, oh. I had no clue that it was a tie. I thought I beat him by an ounce until he said that.
Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't know that either. I know some tournaments it's like whichever angler's weighed in the biggest bag prior, and the way I understood it was whoever had the biggest bag on day one won the tiebreaker, but maybe it was the biggest bag of the other 2 days.
Yeah, there's been some comments about having a half-day fish off. I don't think I've ever seen that.
That was my next question. How do you feel about that tiebreaker? You couldn't have done it because it was dark. You would have had to stay another day and do it the next day, and that's a lot of money for the staff.
Yeah, and I don't know that I've ever seen a fish off like that. I mean, looking back at it, nobody in their right mind would want to fish a half day against Drew Gill on a tiebreaker. Yeah. But that particular day, the next day, I had to do an episode with MLF called The Fifth Day. Mm-hmm. You go back out and you showcase how you did it, your baits, your rods, your reels, your tackle. I mean, it was bitter cold, 38, wind was 30 miles an hour. If there ever was a day I would have wanted to do it, it would have been that day because we caught a couple big ones and lost a couple even bigger. And we only fished for a couple hours. So they were biting a spinnerbait that last day. And heck, who knows? Drew may have pulled a spinnerbait out. I don't know. But I don't think it would have been conditions for his light line stuff. It may or may not. He's such a great, accomplished fisherman. He probably would have figured it out too.
Yeah. Well, it would have been a lot harder trying to stay out there and look at him if that's what he would have chosen to do. There's a big difference in live scoping when it's really slick versus when it's
it was rolling. It was rough. That should be a good show once it comes out because we had fun doing that. You couldn't tell who we are. We had so much clothes on, but they were biting. It was fun.
All right, let's give this away here. See who wins this one. And then I got one more question for you, and we'll wrap this up. Neil, still going. CG Productions. Congratulations. Same thing. Get a hold of me on Facebook at Gabe Montgomery Fishing, or 10 Horse Monty, or Instagram 10 Horse Monty 6, and we will get you taken care of. Last question, and I appreciate you spending time on here. What's going on next year for you? I mean, what kind of plans do you have lined up? You just going to continue to do Toyota and BFL, or are you going to try to move up to something else? There's a lot of options out there. You got a lot of money in your pocket now. So
the money in my pocket could potentially change things a little bit. I don't know. I've tossed around doing something extra. I don't know. I'm just extremely comfortable in my life right now, doing Toyotas, being retired, enjoying family. It's a big commitment, not only the money, but the time away, the travel, to go and do those other tournaments. And, you know, I've accomplished about everything I want to in my fishing career. Yes. I mean, one thing about jumping up to the next level, I mean, say the Tackle Warehouse Pro Series next year would be something I'd think about. I would see some more lakes that I've not been to. I've not been to Harris Chain. That's where they start in February. That would be fun. But I'm not sure yet. I'm tossing that around. I'm not real sure. My wife is all in. She likes to travel. She goes with me all the time, and she's just such a rock star. It's crazy. But I don't know. I'm going to toss that one around yet. But definitely do Toyotas again. I may do more divisions of Toyota and fish some more of those. Definitely the BFLs if I can, if it's in the schedule. But I don't know. Pretty comfortable in my life right now, and I'm not sure. We're going to keep that one open for right now.
Yeah, I completely understand that. It seems like that's one of the things that gets overlooked from the folks at home is, you know, it seems like it's all glorious and glamour when you're a professional fisherman, but man, it is a grind.
It is a grind.
The reasons you just said, not only monetarily, but the time away from, well, if your wife's traveling, there's still time away from the community. From
church, from just everything. I mean, Chase is going to have a baby in January, so we've got another new one there. My daughter Lacey's pregnant, due again later this next summer. So we've got Lacey's got little Sayla already, who's a little over 2 now, and gosh, I haven't seen her in 3 weeks. I miss her so bad.
Yeah,
but. Yeah, there's a lot of things you sacrifice, and for these young guys that are out there chasing it, man, I hats off to them, because it's not an easy life. I mean, there's some very successful anglers out there that are doing well, but it's at a sacrifice. It's got a sacrifice, and so I wish them all the luck in the world. But I don't know. I'm able to $200,000 will pay a lot of entry fees. Able to and healthy enough to still. Sponsors have just blessed me with the equipment. I could do that. It's the want part that I need to figure out. And if I get that figured out, we'll see once where that goes.
Well, as I say, you'll have to pray on it.
Yeah, that's it. That's exactly right.
All right. And this has been a really good interview. I appreciate you spending time with me. I appreciate your testimonials and listening to me talk about mine. I had no idea where this would go, and it went to all the right places. And thanks to everybody out there in the comment section. Great questions, great feedback, and it's always good to have an active chat out there. So before we put a bow on this and wrap it up, any closing thoughts or any, last words before we shut her down?
Not that I can think of. I appreciate you having me on here, Gabe. Just where can we view this later? I mean, it's live right now, I know, but where can friends see it later?
Yeah. So after this is over, it'll automatically go up to my YouTube channel, 10
Gotcha.
Horses Monty, and I'll send you a link to it as well via text. So if you want to send it to, friends and family or whatever, that'd be great. But yeah, it'll be on the YouTube channel right after this.
Excellent.
So, all right, we're going to wrap this up. Thanks again for everybody hanging out. If you won the prize packages tonight, get a hold of me and we will get you taken care of. And great conversation, Roger. Congratulations again. I wish you the best and everything in the near future.
You likewise, Gabe. You likewise. I appreciate the opportunity to be on a great show.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your